Welcome to the System Center Roadshow 2012 Roadshow. Thanks for taking time from your days to come and join us. So Scott Gosling is our National Practice Manager, Data3, looks after the Microsoft services within Data3. He's been doing this role for about 6 years, been at Data3 over 10 years. He sets a strategy nationally for our Microsoft Solutions practice, and he drives that alignment with Microsoft and Data3 across Australia and across the world. His background, Microsoft engineer, consultant, and expertise in project management as well. He sits on a number of advisory boards and councils, Microsoft Global Council for both security and cloud partnering advisory council. So I'll turn over to Scott.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning, everybody. My name's Scott Gosling, as Ray's introduced me. It's my pleasure to be co-presenting today with Justin Cook. I've got you for the first 45 minutes for the business session, which you would have noticed in your registration, and then Justin will come on at 9 o'clock and do the technical deep dive. Before I actually jump into the slides and start on the presentation, I just wanted to firstly explain the presence of the video. We're actually videotaping today's session for prosperity, but also for your colleagues that weren't able to make it. So we'll have this session available after the event. So that's the purpose of the video. Henceforth, we can't move around too much. So we're going to be stuck behind here because we're actually recording the audio. So just explain that up front. But before we actually go into the presentation, it'd be remiss of me not to thank our vendor partners that make this happen. We didn't charge for the roadshow. They're quite expensive to put on. So I'd like to thank Microsoft and their support of the event. Also Quest. You'll notice there's only 4 partners on these slides. We haven't gone out to 20 partners to try and get a whole bunch of cash to run the roadshow. Every one of these partners was selected because they add value to our solution. And we'll actually talk to them today around how they actually add value in the Data3 proposition. System Center out of the box with 2012 is great, but the benefits are amplified with our partners, Quest, Sarvision and Symantec. So thank you to Quest, and we've got Donovan and the guys in the corner. So in the breakouts, I'd encourage you to seek out the guys from Quest if you want to talk further about their offering. Symantec, Alex and the guys from Symantec are here. And again, they've got some compelling value to add on top of Config Manager. So I'd encourage you to talk to Alex and the team from Symantec. And Sarvision, Dennis Rekovic did come out from the Netherlands and was with us for 4 days last week on the roadshow. He couldn't be here today, but Justin Cook can definitely talk to the Sarvision stuff, and you'll see Justin present. So thank you very much to our partners. Appreciate your support. In front of you, Ray did mention you got an information pack. There is some good stuff in there. There's a couple of data sheets on System Center. There's also some data sheets from our partners, Sarvision, Symantec, Quest and Microsoft. There's also the feedback form. Please, if you're going after this session and you're not going to stay for the rest of the day, fill it out. Or through the day, please fill it out as well. We do value feedback, and if you want to talk to us about any of the solutions afterwards, or want to get more information about our partners' products like Live Maps or the Quest products like QMX, please indicate that in the feedback forms, and we'll get some more information to you. Or if you want a one-on-one meeting afterwards as well. Ray did mention briefly this rapid offering. I just encourage you to have a look at that. We developed this because a lot of clients said, I want to get Config Manager deployed, and we have to sit down and do a scoping meeting and then do a whole scope of works and a proposal and all that sort of stuff, and it just took a lot of time to turn around. This is a fixed price, fixed scope offering. We can turn these proposals around in about 10 minutes because we've actually baked this as IP. So you can get up and going very quickly with a pretty competitive price. So I encourage you after this session, if you've looked at this and say there's benefit in that and I like the products, when it might need some help, have a look at that rapid offering as well. So the agenda, what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to frame the business landscape and what's going on out there in the market. I'm going to talk around service delivery and why that's sometimes challenging. I'm going to do just a 1 or 2 quick slides on positioning private cloud. And I might see some people in the audience roll their eyes, and that's happened at a few sessions around, here's a cloud slide. But the reason it's important is you'll see a lot of marketing come out from Microsoft around private cloud and System Center 2012. These products Microsoft uses the foundation enabling technologies for private cloud, and you'll see through the presentation these characteristics how some of these products start addressing the private cloud challenge and how you can deliver that service. I'm going to talk a little bit about Microsoft and their positioning in the market around management products. Then I'm going to do a business level overview of the products and frame what Justin's going to talk to coming up in business terms. And then I talked about there's going to be business case. I'm going to provide some data around business case for you as well out of this session. So I'll start with the business landscape. This is the top 10 Gartner CIO priorities from 2011. And you'll see in the slides that IT management was a new category, wasn't a category in 2008 and 9, but it became one in 2010, and it remains in the top priorities. And the reason is management can allow you to save money if you implement it correctly. It allows you to be more agile, more efficient, and actually deliver more service than you otherwise could. So IT management is a top CIO priority. If you work in the IT department and you work for a CIO, this is one of the top priorities in their mind. And that's evidenced also through our customers survey, where it was one of the top 3 priorities of customers as well. So it is absolutely topical. That isn't a real road, by the way, just in case you're wondering, but that's just saying that the world out there in the business context is complex. We've got, over the weekend, we've got changes in the European zone, the share market's plummeted. If you work for a commercial organisation and you're in retail, people put their hands in their pocket and they're not pulling it out. So retail's facing really mixed challenges. So the business world that our organisations operate in is very complex and changing very, very quickly. We've got to deliver service within that context in a rapidly shifting market. And if you work in the government sector, we've had changes to government as well. So it's changing a lot within government as well very quickly. So the world out there we operate in is complex. And thanks to the likes of Steve Jobs and Apple, users want more. They want to go and buy an iPad on the weekend. They want to bring it into the office on Monday. They expect you to put email on it, and they really don't care if it's delivered securely or anything else because I want email on it. Now, in the good old days, we'd just turn around to those users and say, no, you can't have it. No. See the first answer, which was no, you can't have it. The challenge now is that the board are coming in saying, actually, I want my board papers on the iPad, and you can't turn around to the board who are actually signing off your budget and tell them no, without a really good business case behind you. So users want more, and the days of saying no are gone. So we have to think about how we securely deliver those services to our customers. Justin and I were fortunate to attend the Microsoft Management Summit a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas, and in the keynote they shared this data with us, and I thought it was really interesting to share with you. In 2012 there'll be 8 million servers shipped. So that's still a whole bunch of servers being deployed. Of those, there'll be 2 million virtual hosts and about 6 million that'll actually host physical infrastructure. So of those 2 million hosts that will be shipped this year, there'll be 15 million virtual machines spun up on it. So if you thought you had a problem with virtual sprawl and you thought it was going to go away, it's going to get worse. And I've said this before, and some people sort of got it under control, but some don't. The virtual sprawl issue is not going away. We've had machines spun up for a requirement that wasn't actually documented, and people are still backing those machines up and they don't know what they do. And the sysadmins look at these virtual machines operating, they're still backing up and they don't know what they do, and they think, well, if I shut that thing down, bad things might happen, so I'll just continue to back it up. We don't know why. But then that problem is going to exacerbate, because by 2015, Microsoft's predicting there'll be 30 million virtual machines provisioned in that year. So in 3 years, the amount of virtual machines is going to double. And we've got to manage that. Who's finding it easy to get budget? You're in good company, because we presented it in Perth on Monday last week, and we asked that question. Of any market in Australia that's going to find it easy to get money, it should be Perth in the mining boom, and nobody put their hands up. So you're in good company. So this data is from Gartner. This is saying that worldwide corporate ICT budgets will grow by 0.5% this year. 0.5%. In North America, for the first time since they started the survey, the corporate ICT budgets went backwards by 1.5%. So you've got to do all of this stuff. You've got to support iPads and Android and Windows Mobile and this proliferation of mobile devices. Users are increasing the pressure on you, and you've got to do it with about the same or less budget. And you've got to do it in what is continuing to be a skills crisis. That number there, the 2,200, is from the Australian, and it's the amount of unfilled ICT roles in February 2012. So it's 2,200 unfilled roles as of February 2012. So we've got to deliver all these services with the same budget, with in the middle of a skills crisis, which is putting upwards pressure on wages. So that challenge continues as well. So I don't mean to be the prophet of doom, but it's pretty interesting times out there in the business context. And so the market, in summary, management remains a top CIO priority. The world is still complex out there in a business sense, but also in the ICT sense. Users want to bring their devices to work. You've got to do that, though, within a cost-constrained budget. Your server numbers are still going up, and we're trying to do all that in a labour-constrained market. So that's the market summary out there. But in terms of service delivery, it's still hard. We're going to manage complexity. We thought it was complex before users started doing the BYOD thing. So we've still got mainframe, mid-range systems. We've still got Linux, Solaris. We've got Windows servers. We've got all these application servers out there. Now we've got to start managing iOS, Android, Windows Mobile. If you've really adopted the iPad type devices, you're now managing App Store accounts for users, if in a corporate sense, or some organisations are, and that's putting more support load on you. So it's getting more and more complex out there in an ICT sense as well. We're going to talk a lot today about this central view. Some organisations are fortunate they've actually got this sort of manager and managers view, but in a standard ICT environment, in a corporate shop, you might have an application monitoring solution, you might have a hardware monitoring solution, you might have a network monitoring solution. You could have something that monitors your environmentals, but that's 6 different consoles you've got to look at. And I worked in ICT myself as a sysadmin at a hospital. If you're looking at 6 different consoles, you're going to miss something. You need to get a manager and manager's view to get that central view of everything that's going on in your organisation. And that's really, really critical. Justin's going to talk further to that through his presentations around Operations Manager and Live Maps. And that will allow you to, and also the QMX product, which will let you allow you to get that manager and manager's view. But central view is critical. The other piece in central view that's interesting to think about is Operations Manager with service views as well. If you're not a CIO but you work for one, typically CIOs are actually compensated by service levels. So if you breach service levels, that's why they typically get pretty excited, because they're financially compensated, or a lot of them are on it. So they also want to know what's going on with service levels at any one point in time. If you've got a good service management solution, something like Operations Manager, that can monitor your environment and track service levels in a service view, and you can provide dashboards to CIO through the same tool, that's pretty valuable. Because a lot of people actually collate their SLA reports manually. But if you can start using tools like Operations Manager to do that as well. So that's important, and we'll talk a bit further to that coming up as well. So we've given people unparalleled power, and they've got these mobile devices, and God forbid they might be using Dropbox and have your corporate data walking around on these devices. Hopefully you put a pin on it, but if it's their own device, they may not have a pin on it. And hopefully they don't lose it then if they don't have a pin on it. Because the number one thing that keeps our customers awake at night, and everybody's telling us this is a problem, is actually managing mobile devices and what happens if users lose them. And you get in that really interesting space where, if you've allowed people to bring their own device to work and you haven't updated your acceptable use policy and employment contracts, do you have the right to wipe that device? If you haven't actually signed a bit of paper to say, yes, you can have your own, you can have corporate email on that, but I'm going to wipe the device and wipe out the photos of your kids. Are you able to do that? It's a pretty interesting grey space. So policy around adoption of mobile devices is really critical. Or you need a solution that actually isn't a sledgehammer sort of approach in terms of device reset, which is why we've asked Symantec to come on the road with us. So mobile devices are great. They allow people to be very, very productive. They can play Angry Birds on the plane, which is really nice. But there's also a lot of corporate data you can store in these things, and you've got to manage that and secure it. So I'm just going to start now coming into the System Center stack and talk about that. But firstly, I want to frame what is private cloud. This is a Microsoft slide, but it's not presented in Microsoft Speak. The first thing is virtualization is not private cloud. You might have done, and people now get that, but in the early days, everybody thought virtualization is private cloud. It's not. One of the important characteristics we're going to talk a lot about coming up is end user self-service with System Center 2012. And that's one of the major changes in the product suite. And you'll see that in Justin's presentations, every product has some sort of self-service portal. So the characteristics of generally in cloud computing is pooled resource. So you're addressing a set of pooled resource in storage network compute. Self-service is critical in terms of driving those cost savings and making people more agile and flexible. Is it a high value task and really major value for you to actually respond to Sally's service desk request to deploy project? Really? Is that high value stuff for you to do? If I was a sysadmin still, that would drive me nuts having to do that sort of stuff. Add a device or a user to a collection and publish the application, and can't we automate that? End user self-service in the 2012 suite is going to start helping you do that sort of stuff. Elasticity is also important. Microsoft's talked about burst for a while. Now they've actually given you a tool with app control to allow you to do that. So you can actually start taking virtual machines off premise and push them to the cloud, into something like Data3's Trusted Cloud or up into Azure, and pull it back again. So you're starting to get the tools now to allow you that elasticity and burst off premise, which is really important as well. And it's got to be usage based. So they're characteristics of cloud in general. But in private cloud, the one thing you've got is control. You control where your data is. You know where it is. It's not sitting in some public cloud farm that might be subject of foreign laws. So the thing you get with private cloud and why it's important for a lot of organisations is you get control of your data, you get control of that resource, and you can customise it, and that's pretty important as well. It's difficult to go to a cloud service provider and say, oh, I want you to give me Exchange, but I want to change the schema. That ain't going to happen typically. But if you want to change the schema on your own prem deployment of Exchange, you can do that, obviously. Wouldn't recommend it, but you can go and customise that implementation. So you get control and you get the ability to customise. So private cloud is cloud dedicated to you. Now we're going to start coming to the System Center products and you start seeing how these products start fulfilling those characteristics of private cloud. I thought I'd put the NIST definition up of private cloud as well. And a lot of people use this when they're talking business case. And the NIST definition, probably the one thing there is it says it may be owned, managed and operated by the organisation or a third party. So it is operated by you, not operated typically by an external provider. Or you could outsource that to have it managed on your behalf. So how does all this apply? The key term here is you need an integrated set of tools. So a lot of people have actually gone and bought a tool to go and do mobile device management. That's really nice, but if that tool doesn't work with the rest of your management suite, you now introduced another tool you've got to manage. So you want these tools to work together to make your life easier, because I know your life is pretty busy, especially for all the sysadmins that are here for Justin's session. Your life's busy enough as it is. You don't need to introduce tools that don't work together to make your life easier. So an integrated set of tools is critical. You need to provide end user self-service. You've got to start thinking about making users respond to their own requests. I use the Sally example around project. Sally can go to an application catalogue, pick project, kicks off a workflow, goes to a manager, financial approval, could go to the software asset management team. Yes, we've got the licensing and we're covered, and it just automatically updates the collection and gets pushed down to it. That's end user self-service. That's making you more productive, not responding to mundane requests, which just are the bane of your existence. And that's the sort of stuff you need to think about driving aggressively. Microsoft uses the term aggressive standardization, aggressive automation, and you can do that with the System Center 2012 suite. You need to start working on automating your data center provisioning and deprovisioning. So for example, you could have an end user self-service request through Service Manager to say, I need a web server provision for a marketing campaign. End users do that. But you might have an expiry date in the campaign. So with Orchestrator and Service Manager, you can have expiry date for the virtual machine. So you can come back to the sysadmins to go, this machine is now from the self-service request isn't required anymore. Go and check and you can spin it down. So you could back that virtual machine up, shut it down. So you're preventing that virtual sprawl by having these tools. But you also need to manage and monitor the environment through that integrated set of tools. And they need to work together to make your life easier. And management solutions can help. Who remembers this? Microsoft products, this is actually a box shot from SMS 1.2. The sharp people in the audience will actually realise that's a German cover. That's the only image I could find on Bing Images was actually SMS 1.2. I couldn't find anything earlier than that. That's the only one I could find. What I'm trying to say here is that Microsoft's been in this market for a long time. This is SMS 1.2 days ago, back to SMS 1.0 in the desktop management space. So they've been evolving and developing products for quite a long time in this space. And that's supported by analysts such as Gartner. The left-hand quadrant is the IT event correlation and analysis, which is the operations manager market, and PC lifecycle management tools, which is desktop management. This is the left-hand quadrant's from 2010, and Microsoft was already pushing up in the leaders, but with the release of 2012, they'll be really pushing up to the top right-hand corner. And Microsoft was already a leader in PC lifecycle management tools as at January 2011. So they're extending their leadership in this market, and that's supported by the analysts as well. So Microsoft's been in this market for quite a while, and it's supported by analyst data in terms of its leadership in the space. Okay, so starting to talk about System Center. There's a few things changed in just the products and how they work together at the start. System Center is now like Office. You don't buy Office, you can't just buy Word anymore. You buy Office and you pick Word from an install menu. System Center is the same. It's a suite. And with that suite, you get a whole bunch of products. You get Config Manager and Ops Manager, which most people would know. You get Service Manager, which is greatly improved, and Justin will talk further to that in his session. You get Orchestrator. Now, not a lot of people have leveraged Orchestrator, but that is the tool that actually picks up those mundane tasks and automates them. You can provision virtual machines with Orchestrator. You can deprovision virtual machines. Anything you can actually do as an activity, this thing can automate. And that's where you really start unlocking those benefits. Virtual Machine Manager has changed a lot, and a lot of the actual major vendors are working with Microsoft around Virtual Machine Manager to expose the functionality of their products, like storage vendors, hardware, server vendors, network vendors. So you can actually start talking to the fabric that's in storage, network, compute through Virtual Machine Manager. So EMC, NetApp, a lot of those vendors are actually working with Microsoft in that space. App Control is a new product to talk about, which actually allows you to manage virtual machines on-premise, but off-premise as well. Data Protection Manager, we've got a couple of slides on what's changed there coming up. And Endpoint Protection. You would have recognised that as Forefront Endpoint Protection before. Microsoft's bought Forefront Endpoint Protection, the System Center suite, and it's tightly integrated to System Center Config Manager. So Endpoint Protection, when you take the suite up, gives you Endpoint Protection comes with the suite. So if you've already got another product, you might be able to leverage Endpoint Protection through the suite itself. And you also get the unified installer to assist you to install these different products. So that is the 2012 suite of products. There's a lot more functionality. You get a lot of value there as well. And a lot of these products are now extended as well. So Justin, I might steal his thunder, but he's got there's enhanced network monitoring with Operations Manager. You get mobile device management with Config Manager. So you get a lot more benefit from these products as well as just the actual total suite itself. So talking firstly to Config Manager and what's changed in Config Manager to business term. The number one thing customers are asking us about right now is mobile device management. Out of the box, System Center Config Manager 2012, working with Exchange 2010 and ActiveSync, will allow you to do remote device wipe for iOS, Android, and Windows Mobile. So if your acceptable use policy is that I'll reset the device because it's a work-issued mobile phone, out of the box with Config Manager 2012, you can manage that device now. You can get inventory on it, and you can reset it. So that just adds value to it. But then on top of that, you can extend that solution with our partners like Symantec, who've just acquired the Odyssey Athena product. Now, the Odyssey Athena product sits on top of Config Manager, so it's not a new tool. It just integrates with Config Manager, but it allows you to do more granular management on the device. So, for example, if it's BYOD and you just want to take the email off the device, you can just reset the email profile and take the email off the device, but leave everything else like people's kids' photos, which they get pretty excited about. You can leave those on the device. So the Athena product on top of Config Manager adds a lot of value. Symantec are here, so you can talk to the guys in the break a bit further about it, and Justin will have a couple of slides on the Athena product coming up. But we think Athena with Config Manager adds a lot of value. You can also manage non-Windows devices, so you can start. They've started to extend the reach of the Config Manager product, but there's also third-party tools like QMX to extend the reach of that solution as well. And you've also got user software targeting. This is pretty important. So if you've got an MSI install package, you typically target that towards a user or towards a workstation. That's okay, but I don't really want Justin, when he logs onto my machine and check his email, to have Visual Studio pushed down because it's published to him, but it's not published to me. I don't want that footprint. I don't want the network traffic. I don't want the ghost of the install image coming down to my machine. So you can start using things like AppV with user software targeting, because there's this concept now called primary device. So Config Manager, you can either, through self-service, say this is my primary device, or it'll actually watch your log-on traffic to devices and go, you've logged on 7 times or whatever the threshold is to that device, that's now your primary device. So it'll say, on the primary device, do an MSI-based install. But if it's not Justin's primary device, just present Visual Studio as an AppV package to him, because we know he's going to log off that machine and it's not to stay there. So you can start getting a lot more granular and a lot smarter about how you target users and workstations with applications. So that's a really, really important change coming up. You can also do that with role-based targeting as well. But the other one's end-user self-service. You can have the application catalog and use the Sally example and publish project, because you've already done all the work to package it and have it ready to go. But instead of just putting it in the collection and having to deal with it through a service desk request, you can just put it up in a catalog and go, here it is. As long as you've got financial approval and the software asset management team approve it, I don't care. As a sysadmin, I really don't care. I packaged it once. I don't want to be managing collections. That is not high value work for me to do. So why don't you have an application catalog and go, I'm going to have project, and it's just dealt with through workflow and Orchestrator. That's high value work. And you can extend Config Manager through our partners, as I talked to before. Operations Manager, who's actually got Ops Manager running in their environment? Who actually then got Ops Manager to work with their network? Yep. It wasn't the easiest thing to do out of the box. Microsoft's licensed some technology from EMC, and Ops Manager will go out and auto-discover your network. But it's not just SNMP, what's up, what's down, red light, green light sort of monitoring. It can get down to port interface level and give you I/O on your routers and switches. And it'll also then say that router on that port is connected to this device and actually give you the throughput between those interfaces. So it'll actually go out and start giving you real intelligence on your network. And that's one of the major features. I talked before about that manager of managers view. We're not saying it doesn't supersede the other management tools you have in place, but it starts to aggregate that data and give you that central view. And that's really critical. You also, any developers in the room? No developers? Good. We're all infrastructure guys, we're amongst friends. So if you've worked with a dev team, you've probably gotten to that situation, or you might have got that situation where you've got a problem with an application. And typically then the war starts. The infrastructure team will sit there and say it's something in your code, you always do it, it's not my problem, my network's state of the art, it's okay. The developers will say, nothing wrong with my code, there is something wrong with the infrastructure. And then you get this standoff between the two teams. The AviCode acquisition will allow you to go into the application and inspect the code and let you go down to the line of code and call it out and say, I think there's an issue in this application, this line of code. Really deep inspection in .NET apps will actually highlight either performance issues or application or code issues. It can even get into the transact SQL queries and actually say, I think there's something wrong in there. You get that out of the box with Ops Manager now in the new release. You just get it because they acquired AviCode. AviCode, if you work at a large development team, will really, really unlock some benefit for you. You can start to define these service views. Justin will talk further to this, but with Ops Manager, it's really nice to monitor all the applications and Exchange and everything else. But you can start to define these service views. You're going to see a lot more about ITIL coming up, especially with Service Manager, but you can define the service view for messaging as a service, for example. Your CIO might have a service level of agreement with the business around messaging, and the messaging service might be comprised of Exchange, the Windows server it sits on, the storage it sits on, the network it runs across, the physical servers it runs on, the front-end servers, and your internet connection. All of those components might comprise the messaging service. You can define that service in SCOM and actually have a service dashboard and even the service level associated with it, and actually monitor that and actually provide feedback on the service level and the service view. So you can use something like Savage and Live Maps and actually provide a service view which sits on a 42-inch panel in the CIO's office, and he can monitor the service levels and his service level objectives. You can have a different view for the network operations center around the actual map of the state and all the applications and how they're running in there. So you can actually have these service views, one tool, one solution, but giving different types of views for the organisation as well. And you can extend this through our partners. So I talked about Sarvision, but you also need to extend the reach of SCOM to actually encompass all those different applications on your network. The QMX product from Quest can extend the reach of that solution and actually allow you to actually target other systems. So Justin will talk further to QMX in his presentation, but it adds a lot of value as well. So then you've got Service Manager. So you've got ITIL alignment with Service Manager, so that's pretty important. But the main one is the Service Catalog in terms of changes. The Service Catalog was one of the features that was missing out of Service Manager before. And we talked to a lot of customers about Service Manager, but we just never went ahead because we couldn't get that service catalog. That's now there. So the example of the service catalog I talked to before is the marketing department wants a new web server. So marketing are trying to spin up a new campaign. They need to get a web server provisioned so they can do their thing. They can actually hit a service catalog and do a self-service request out of Service Manager to do that. So that self-service is actually coming through Service Manager as well. And it's got really tight integration with Orchestrator. So you can automate a lot of tasks with Orchestrator with Service Manager as well. So with Orchestrator, what it provides is automation, aggressive automation. So you can get Orchestrator to go and take any of those tasks you can do. It can even actually expose functionality from tools like VMware. With the VMware tools, you can actually expose that functionality and automate those tasks with Orchestrator. You get consistency. So the thing is, if I gave you a task and it had 100 steps in it, and I said run it 100 times, people get bored. You know, your mind starts to wander. You could have had a big night the night before. 95 times out of the 100 you might get it right, but 5 times you'll probably get it wrong. Orchestrator is a tool, it doesn't get it wrong. It just does the same thing every single time. So it gives you that consistency. Helps you reduce costs because obviously you're not sitting there doing mundane tasks. You can start getting the front foot and getting out to the business and driving initiatives. So it enhances your productivity at the same time. But also, who's been subject to quality audit before? Anybody? They're not the funnest things on the planet, because auditors will come in and ask things like, how do you do process X, Y, Z? Is there a documentation on how you do this? With Orchestrator, you just pull the run book out and go, there it is. That's how we do it every single time. So Orchestrator can help you with compliance in a quality audit or that sort of sense as well. So overall, it can help you to reduce risk. With Virtual Machine Manager, probably one of the major changes is the private cloud focus. So instead of having a virtual machine targeting on a virtual host, and it's just there's that correlation, it's now starting to address a set of fabric, a storage network compute. It doesn't care where it runs. It may not even be in your private cloud. It could be up at Azure or Data 3. But what it's saying is this machine will run in this sort of fabric until some threshold's breached. At that point, I'm going to set an action. I'll push it off premise. I'll introduce more capacity or something like that. So you start to get that real private cloud focus and with Virtual Machine Manager. Provides elasticity with that controller as well. So you can actually start pushing workloads around on-premise or off-premise as well. But it also allows you to manage Hyper-V, ESX and Zen server out of the box. It's one of the few tools in the market that allows you to do all three. And it provides a self-service portal. So again, like the other tools you've seen, self-service portal comes up over and over and over again. So here's the licensing slide. We do have some of the licensing team outside, and I know I'm going to get asked this question, so I thought I'd put it up front. If you're a current System Center customer, there is a transition process to get you to the new suite. So because remembering it is now a suite, you might have bought just Config Manager, or you might have Ops Manager as well. There is a transition process based on points to get you to the new suite. If you're a new System Center customer, the good news is it's actually much easier to license. There's just 2 different versions of it, so it's much easier to get into the suite now. So I talked before about actually getting a business case. So here's some data for you to take away to use in your organisation if you have to justify a business case for a System Center upgrade. So using your language, talking back to the business in a business case sense, by adopting the System Center products, it's going to allow you to talk business language. So what this is going to allow you to do is go into Service Manager and start defining those services and actually, and so you can't publish a service without defining what they are. So you can get on the front foot to the business and say, what do you want us to publish as a service? What are we trying to do as a business? And start defining those services so we can actually then get into that service portal for self-service. You can start align technology to business strategy because you're having that front foot conversation around what are we trying to do as a business and what services can we provide to react. And then and at the more micro level within your organisation, it's going to reduce your operating costs. We're going to take human error out of it through things like Orchestrator and automation, but more importantly, we're going to let users get more agile. You're going to see an example from Justin talking about a change in membership of a group. Again, that's a task that used to drive me nuts. I used to hate having to update group membership. It just used to drive me insane. I used to sit there going, surely there's a better way to do it. Justin's got a complete end-to-end automated example which is based on self-service. And that's just one of the things that used to drive me nuts you can just get rid of now as a task. Just push it as a self-service request. So that self-service is critical in terms of agility and making people more productive. In your business case, how much downtime do you have in people waiting for you to respond? So if I'm marketing and I need a new virtual machine spun up and it takes you 10 days to do it, I've got to work at my marketing go live date and go back 10 days to get my machine provision. If I'm about to go and work on some new project and I need access to a folder and it takes you guys half an hour for the service desk, or say 3 hours for the service desk request to get closed and update the group membership, that's 3 hours I've got to sit there spinning my wheels waiting for you guys to react. So all of that forms part of your business case around end user productivity as well. But ultimately, in a business case sense, System Center is going to allow ICT to act as a business enabler, not a reactor, because you're going to get on that front foot. So we talked a bit about financials. In year 1, System Center, if you adopt all of the products and actually drive that automation and self-service, we estimate through all the products you can save $257,400. Now you'll look at that and go, really nice slide, Scott. I don't know where you plucked that number from. It seems like a big number. That's about for about a 1,000-seat organisation. We've got a private cloud economics calculator we developed, and it's got all these scenarios where you can drive self-service and automation in it. I'd love for you to come up to us afterwards and actually run that for your organisation. It's completely tunable based on service desk request numbers and how long it takes you to provision and what your costs are, and we can actually tune that for your organisation. So come and grab one of the members of our team, and we'd love to run through that with you as well. So in summary, wrapping up just wrapping up the business session now, we think System Centre 2012 is compelling. There's some really good business features in there, and I've highlighted a couple of those that we think would add a lot of value to your organisation. For config manager, it might be mobile device management. For ops manager, it could be the network monitoring, it could be the service views. But all the products have come a long way. So we think there are really strong business benefits there. And we've modelled your savings, and we think you can actually save a fair bit of money in terms of and get more productive through adopting all the products in the System Centre suite.
Thank you for watching. We hope that you found value in the session. For more information about Data3 and our partners, go to www.data3.com.au/SC12. If you have any questions or wish to discuss your System Centre 2012 deployment or upgrade, please do not hesitate to contact the Data3 team on 02 9081 9653.